We're getting the second seasons of 2 Netflix government agency worker series in a very short time span. But the first to arrive is The Night Agent with Gabriel Basso, and this time he's not spending any time behind the night action desk. So are you going to watch? The hunt for a CIA agent accused of leaking secrets puts Peter and Rose in the crosshairs of a ruthless intelligence broker and a deadly war criminal. This picks up a handful of months after Basso's Peter Sutherland saved the president, now entering the field as a rookie agent. Now the season, it doesn't waste any time getting us into the fray, giving us an intense action piece through the streets of Bangkok. Now at first, I was a bit skeptical of how this season was going to play out because Sutherland is a bit bumbling and he feels rigid in his position of field agent. But once we get more understanding of his newbie status, it makes more sense as to his awkward demeanor. Now throughout the show, you'll need to suspend some disbelief. Or a lot, especially when surveillance is concerned. Numerous times we watch somebody trail another and they are following along way too closely. So much so that anybody with any sort of spatial awareness is going to be cognizant of the presence. Even more so because all involved are supposed to be trained in stealthy behaviors. Now, central to the plot also is this stolen document, which is a simple PDF on a flash drive that doesn't appear to have any sort of encryption or password on it. Again, remember the whole suspension of disbelief? Well, I rolled my eyes massively at this point, laughing at how quickly plot conveniences were introduced within the storytelling. And it's not the only instance. Returning this season is Lucienne Buchanan playing Rose, the woman Peter secured and then protected in season 1. They continue to have good chemistry, sharing a concern for each other, but not always getting along like a perfect pairing. Rose can be both endearing and aggravating. She's sometimes got an innocence or this naivete to her that makes her sympathetic, but then she'll also do things that place her or them in a bad predicament, even though she should have just stayed put. Now, something that defies the believability of their relationship and their interactions is how easily and matter-of-factly Rose is encouraged to join Peter's mission. She's an untrained civilian, and although they have history together and she has a particular technical skill, it's very convenient how even Peter's boss invites her into an op. Now, this isn't enough to ruin the storytelling, but if implausibilities like this bug you, they are fairly constant throughout the story. Now, the show somewhat surprisingly maintains a good amount of cloak and dagger with covert actions and clandestine meetings. With the hunt for the stolen documents and then the one who holds them, the story interweaves another storyline that involves a foreign embassy. And this sets up scenarios that have ramifications throughout many of the episodes. The stress, at times, it's high, thanks to the tight security of the location, the palpable threat to certain individuals, and then the compressed timelines that the characters have to work within. And then, as we get to the conclusion, the risk of peril, it increases a ton, as we're shown what certain weapons can do to a person, which then leads to a hunt and a chase, all with a ticking clock that reminds us of the impending potential carnage. There are also arcs that work to show the questionable morality the agents face when dealing with assets and procuring intel. It's a fine balance to illustrate because some decisions could come across as reprehensible and then turn you off of the protagonist, while others will feel completely justified within the scope of their work. And I appreciate that the show has our main characters still maintain some sense of humanity and they can be shaken by the options they're given rather than having them just be cold and calculated right off the bat. I mean, I can see an agent getting to that point, especially if lives depended on it, but because Peter is so new in the field, and then Rose isn't an agent at all, it's refreshing to watch them wrestle and struggle with any dilemmas that they encounter. Now, a parallel within this theme of having to make choices that may go against beliefs, we get to see this perspective from a completely different angle, showing us what someone will do to ensure the safety of their loved ones. And what makes this especially effective is the plausibility of the danger. While the scenario may be fiction, the circumstances aren't necessarily so, at least at the core, as we watch an innocent carry out actions that contradict the cultural rules. They also must make decisions that could be seen as disgraceful, with the threat of being ostracized or worse because of what they carry out. And I know that's a bit nondescript, but I'm attempting to stay vague so I don't give away important details. Now, there's some decent action within the show, too, with a few sequences that made me wince as appendages bent in the wrong direction and then bones were heard to crack. And while the main protagonists, they encounter physical harm and risk, there's also a good amount of plot armor to keep them from dying off too early, even if the injury avoidance is far-fetched. I think this season was trying to audition Basso for a Tom Cruise role because they have him running all over the place and then through all kinds of obstacles, kind of like this extreme parkour route. And at this point, I'm not sure he'd get the gig, but they do put him through the cardio gauntlet. And just like with the season 1, this has 10 episodes that are all around 50 minutes, meaning it's not a quick binge, but the pacing is rather quick so that it does go by in a way that feels faster than it is. And funny enough, though, this feels quick despite having a ton of repetition and sequences that just feature our characters going back and forth over the same topics and issues. I mean, the redundancies, they get tiring. I'm not sure how it didn't make the show feel long, but just imagine how much quicker the series could have felt if they eliminated these duplicated elements. Now, I know it sounds like I'm mixed on the show, and maybe even skewing more negative than positive, and I kind of am. But I also think this season is an improvement over the first, with a dynamic and stressful main arc, even though it's littered with plot conveniences and character protection. Gabriel Basso and Lucien Buchanan continue to share an endearing chemistry, while also being put into some ludicrous and unbelievable scenarios. The show definitely introduces ethical dilemmas shown from various perspectives, illustrating how motives and personal desires can overtake normative ideals. The show continues to suffer from implausibilities and the need for continual suspension of disbelief, but it also provides an entertaining and fun escape, even if you may roll your eyes a bunch. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and a bunch of violence. I give Season 2 of The Night Agent 3 out of 5 couches. With Netflix's The Recruit also coming out with a second season very shortly, which of the two do you prefer? I mean, they share similar concepts, but have vastly different tones, and they're presented in distinct ways. Let me know which one you enjoy more in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.